Over the past 2 years, I can't believe that I've been walking around on bail.
My dad now has a conviction because my sister lied, and it's stuck.
We went to hell and back because we tried to use the system.
I'm a housewife, I'm a mum, and they made me feel like New Zealand's most wanted.
They take your glasses and your bag and check everything off and put it in sealed plastic bags. They photograph you, they fingerprint you, and then I was put in a cell.
In an attempt to reassure Kiwi parents, Prime Minister John Key promised to fix the law if it was shown that good parents were being criminalised.
If you lightly smack a child, you shouldn't be prosecuted, and you certainly shouldn't be investigated. If the law doesn't work and people do start getting arrested or start getting prosecuted, I'm going to change the law.
When the politicians say if good parents have been criminalised for a light smack just to correct their children, we'll change the law. Well, good parents, those who lightly smack the children to correct them, are already being criminalised. Because whenever they smack the children in order to correct them, they commit a criminal offence. Raising
kids isn't an easy task. Families are desperate for support and encouragement from government agencies that listen and respond appropriately. Since 2007, hundreds of families have been affected by a flawed piece of legislation. Eric and Lisa made no secret of the fact that their daughter was difficult to handle. In desperation, they approached a public health nurse for help, admitting that they did sometimes use a smack. Despite having no previous history with child, youth and family, they ended up with their daughters in care and a police investigation.
Well, I didn't go to parenting help. I went to the public health nurse because I had a child who was very strong-willed, was becoming quite abusive and destructive at home, and we had tried every method we could think of to settle it down, and we just were at our wits' end. No one was offering us any help. Absolutely no one. I'd gone to schools and asked them. It's not like we hadn't looked for alternatives, and we knew that with Abigail, a smack on the bottom sometimes was the only thing that would bring her out of her meltdowns.
It was as a result of such a meltdown that Eric found himself in hot water.
We put her in her room and she was getting her bunk beds and slamming them against the wall and yelling and screaming abuse at us. So Eric went in, because I'd already tried to settle her, and said, if you don't stop, you will get a smack bottom.
Just an open hand smack on the bottom. That's all it was.
Then we got a phone call about 10 to 3 on the Friday saying there has been a report of abuse to SIFs. They said, well, can you find somewhere for your children to stay, because we would like them out of the house until this is sorted. And I really didn't know what to say, quite honestly. I was so shocked that I didn't know what to do, and I thought if I refused to move them that they might come in and take my kids and send them somewhere they didn't know.
Jack and Jenny, also battling a difficult child, found themselves facing 18 charges of abuse.
I walked in and sat down and heard the charges being read and thought, gosh, who's this monster and this wee piece of fluff? He's married and got knocked up so they can avoid some sort of jail term.
That monster was a loving dad of 4 kids.
My oldest child, my son, I got custody of him when he was about 4.5 years old. He was out of control with his mother, and she decided to send him back up to me.
Even with the security of a stable home, their son's behaviour remained a challenge.
There was 2 incidences where my oldest son actually attacked me. There was once when I was pregnant with the one who's 2.5-year-old now. He was watching MTV, which wasn't allowed in the household because of its graphic nature. And I had asked him several times to turn it off, and he refused. And so I stood in front of the TV and turned it off. And he walked up to me and punched me. He punched me in the stomach and said that he hoped that the baby would die. And the other time, he ended up pushing me over, kicking and hitting and punching me.
My wife called me and told me what had happened, and I heard that he was at the school, and what he was doing at the pools where we live, not far. He would see me, he'd jump out the other side, and we were playing cat and mouse. We got him, me and one of my friends, and we got him back to our house, and he was really angry. And when we got inside, he said to me that, "Give me a knife, I want to kill myself, and I want to kill everyone. I'm going to stab you guys, I'm going to stab my daughter, I'm going to stab everyone." And it was really, really, and it was scary.
I could hardly move because he had beaten me so bad that the swelling and the bruising was instant, and I couldn't even walk.
A few hours went by, we were trying to calm him down, it was late at night. Took him into the bedroom, and he was still saying these threats. And I didn't know whether he was going to do it, I didn't know whether he would, but I was tired.
And his father awoke with a start and found him in the kitchen. And in the kitchen is where things like knives are kept. And he was just terrified. Took the child back to his room and sat him down and put the tie around his neck, saying, "What am I to do? What am I to do?" Now he obviously saw that that was just really inappropriate and altered the behaviour immediately. He was desperate.
I just thought to myself, this is so wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. And I took it off really quick.
What can you do for this child? You can't lock him in a room to stop him harming himself and others, because that would be cruel. You can't smack them on the bum and tie them to their bed, because that would be cruel. You can't secure them somewhere and hold on to them physically, because that would be cruel. What do you do?
And I said to him, why did you do this? And he said that he's sorry, that he just gets angry.
Like Jack, father of two Paul went to Child, Youth and Family for help, but was turned away.
I tried everywhere. She'd been playing up, I'd taken cell phones off her, just all sorts of things, but she knew it all, and her and her friends could outsmart me, and me and my wife went to SIFs for help. They told us it was our responsibility because our daughter was under 18, and it was responsible for parents. I said we couldn't have her at home. She was too much trouble, wouldn't listen to us, wouldn't obey the family rules, and they weren't interested. They just turned around and said I had an anger problem.
But what causes me concern is that very good parents who have no history of criminal offending do appear from time to time to be particularly caught up in a net which has been cast too wide. Now, the case of my client, Paul, is an example of this. He's a hard-working man, a plumber. His daughter, who I think was 14 at the time, was going out at night at about 1 o'clock in the morning after the family had gone to bed, and she would steal the housekeeping money and go out with her boyfriend, a boy racer, and essentially hoon at over 100 kilometres an hour. And one day her father caught her out about this as she snuck in the window on the door at 4:30 or 5 in the morning and got her by the shoulders and said, "What the hell are you doing?" She got the pip and complained to police. As a result, he was charged with assaulting a child, which carries a maximum penalty of 2 years. And ultimately, he faced criminal sanction for doing what any responsible parent would do.
She told the police that I'd punched her in the face 4 or 5 times, and I'd never done anything of the sort. There was no injuries whatsoever to her, and I still can't understand why the police did not take any photographs.
It's a tough call for government agencies to tackle New Zealand's alarming rate of child abuse. But the current approach is catching good parents who are raising great kids, rather than the dysfunctional families where children really are at risk.
Now, fine.
The incident that got me into trouble was I was in the kitchen preparing a meal. The 2 boys were playing up in the room they shared, and there was one almighty scream. It literally made my blood run cold, and I knew it was the older boy. So I asked him to come out and tell me what had happened. And I looked down at his leg and he said, "I've been stabbed with a pen." So I got him to sit down next to his brother on the couch, and I said to the older brother, "Now you do to him what he did to you. He can see what it feels like." And he picked up the pen and sort of, went like that. And I said, "No." And I just got it and went like that. And that's what I was arrested for.
Mike's youngest daughter wasn't a stranger to police, but this was the first time he had found himself on the wrong side of the law.
On one particular occasion, my daughter was actually spotted by the police in the shopping area, local shopping area. And the police approached her and she fought the police. She kicked in the doors of the police car. She tried to kick out the window of the police car, and she had to be restrained by 2 burly cops. I get the inevitable phone call, would you mind coming down and picking up your daughter? On the way home, I was talking to my daughter and I was looking for answers. And she had the old blank look in the face, like, I'm not listening to you, you can get lost, I don't want to talk to you, shut up. And I was getting very frustrated. And I was driving, and she was on my left-hand side, obviously, and I smacked her leg with my hand. That was the only thing. I was to try and get her attention. Listen, girl, I'm talking to you, listen to me. And that's the only time I touched her. Next thing I knew was that there was a policeman at the door. And he asked me to accompany him, and I said, well, I've got things to do. He said, no, this is serious, you have to accompany us. And we went to the SIF's office, and this lady was asking me lots of questions. And the old joke questions like, how often do you still beat your daughter? And I said, I've never beaten my daughter. And I said, this is all made up stories. And they told me that I had punched her, I had hit her in the face with a phone book while we were driving home. And it's not something you carry in a car as a phone book. We sat there and we got the video interview from the police, and they said they were going to charge me with assault.
Oh, that's probably Murray. Can you go get that, love?
Hello.
Hello, Mrs. Johnston.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Granger from the Department of Child, Youth and Family. I was wondering if I could possibly come in and ask you and your husband a couple of questions.
For Jack and Jenny, the dreaded call came after Jack's ex-partner encouraged their son to lay a complaint with SIFs so that she could get custody.
SIFs turned up on a Friday night and took the youngest two, and I begged them to keep them together because the youngest was only 1 at the time and he was still breastfeeding. Never once did they tell me that I could have gone.
For parents who've never experienced this before, it's a very emotional period of time. And I remember my daughter, just crying, save me, Daddy, save me, Daddy. And I said that I'm going to come and get you. That memory, it still sticks, I still see it. Seeing a little baby put into the back of a police car.
The children were removed by SIFs 20 months before the case even made it to court.
You don't expect to be phoned and told that you're being investigated for abuse and you have to have your children gone.
I said to Lace, did they say what to do, how to handle it? And she says, no. And I said, well, give me the number, I'll call them. And I called and I said, well, what do we tell the children? How do we handle this? And she said, well, just tell them the truth, because Daddy hit her, causing a big bruise. She's got to go somewhere and you're going to get some help so this never ever happens again. And I said, well, okay, that answers one question, but that raises a heck of a lot more. I said, what bruise? And number 2, I've never hit my daughters.
They had an enforced time away from their parents. We couldn't go and see them without another adult with us. It wasn't a sleepover for them. It wasn't a fun time. They knew that Dad, if he got into trouble, could go to jail.
Several times we phoned back and talked with them and said, is there any way to move this forward? No, we can't possibly meet. Call us on Monday. We'll talk about it then.
It had a huge effect on our family. My daughter, who sleeps all the time, couldn't get to sleep at night. Our other one ran around the house locking doors so no one could come and take her in the night. And it just made us distrustful.
Grandma Lorraine didn't have her kids removed. She ended up in a police cell.
The police became involved. Over 24 hours later, it was the following night, when he took off from home, he jumped out of the bedroom window. The young constable said that he wanted to speak to me about the incident, and I said to him I was not speaking to anybody until I had spoken to a lawyer. I went to the police station, I was put in an interview room and told that I wasn't under arrest. And then they went away because they were dealing with another incident. and then they came back and read me my rights.
I was quite shocked. I thought that she would get bailed back to her address, and so I was quite mortified that the idea that they would take her away and put her in the cells overnight.
Jim,
Oh.
this is...
Catherine Granger, Child, Youth and Family.
Jim Johnston.
Would you like to sit down?
I'm here because we have received a complaint pertaining to an incident with your daughter. Is she home?
She's in her room. Why?
Tell me what happened at the park on Monday. You were there with your daughter and another child, is that right?
So Jill refused to come to me and gave me a dirty look. So I grabbed her by the arm and said, "Come here, Missy."
I grabbed her?
You know, sort of like pulled her to stand in front of me, break the attitude. You know how preteen girls are.
Well, to me it felt like the inmates had finally taken over the asylum. Lorraine's been as a mother, she's a grandmother, she's been a caregiver for over 30 years, and here she is in jail for teaching a child a lesson.
4 months after the incident, I had my final court appearance, and in the judge's summation, he acknowledged that the younger boy was a handful. He also acknowledged that I was a caring parent and had obviously had a lot of trouble dealing with these behaviours. He also said that what I had done was just akin to tapping a child on the hand, and he discharged me without conviction.
We decided from the word go that we would tell the truth, and you felt like that truth was going to get you into big trouble.
We were given a critical rating. Critical is the same rating that's given if a child has got cigarette burns or has been raped or has broken bones. I am still at a loss as to how we ended up with a critical rating. If they were that concerned that they had to remove the children from our home, they should have come and investigated immediately.
Eric and Lisa received an apology from the local Office of Child, Youth and Family, but Department Head Peter Hughes still stands by SIF's actions as being appropriate. Mike wasn't so lucky.
So a smack on the leg of a child as they're driving along because she's just told the cops to stuff off.
Well, I don't think you'd get arrested for that.
But arrested he was.
And I've got a conviction, and that basically is a conviction for assaulting my daughter with slapping her on the leg with an open hand.
The bill that is there, the law that is there, actually hasn't resulted in good parents facing criminal charges for lightly smacking their children. If it was, there wouldn't be a member of parliament that would support it.
Dad is stuck with a conviction, is going to be on his record for the rest of his life, and only because he cared enough to try and get his daughter back on the right track.
John Key is misleading people when he says that they are free to smack their children, continue smacking their children lightly for correction. Police are right to think this is a criminal wrong. Parliament intended to make it unlawful, and therefore if you keep smacking, you've been warned, prosecution is certainly going to be seriously considered.
We didn't get prosecuted, but that was because there was good work on behalf of a few people. If it had been left up to SIFs and other people, we would have been.
The crux of the problem is that two health professionals decided to link two unrelated incidences. A smack that had happened the day before and a bruise that they had cited 2 weeks before, and make them into one incident to present as fact to SIF.
It wasn't the fact that they investigated a serious claim, my daughter ringing up and saying that I'd punched her. I was quite pleased that they responded straight away, but their response wasn't the best. They didn't believe a word I said, nor my wife, nor my daughter, and all they wanted to do was get me in that wagon and take me away. My relationship with my daughter now is perfect. She's completely changed, and she's apologised numerous times to me, and wonders why she did it, but it happened. So at the end of the day, I've done my best for my daughters, and it was just a shock what happened.
So that is how it should be, thank you. Yes. So look, I really do appreciate that you've been very open with me, but assault on a child is a serious matter. So I have to tell you that I will be referring this matter to the police. So you will no doubt hear from them in due course pending charges being laid. Now, my strong advice to you is to arrange alternate care for Jill until we are satisfied that it is perfectly safe for her to be here with you.
Are you serious?
Perfectly. You will hear from us sometime next week.
Just what exactly are we supposed to tell Jill?
Tell her the truth. Violence is not an acceptable form of discipline, Mr. Johnston. It may make you feel better, but it is never a good option for your daughter.
Violence.
Well, there isn't really any other way to describe it, is there? I'm sorry. Till next week, I'll let myself out.
I never, the police.
Jack and Jenny weren't so lucky. Their case went to criminal trial, an ordeal that lasted almost 2 years and cost them personally about $100,000.
I was charged as an accessory to kidnapping because I was in the room when my husband tried to protect our son from harming himself as well as the rest of us.
I was charged with cruelty to a child, assault on a child, neglect of a child, charges like putting soap in his mouth, excessive chores, excessive time out.
I was charged as an accessory to giving our son a number 2 haircut. It was decided that he would have a haircut because he was trying to grow it into a mohawk because that's what they thought was cool at school, and it was gang affiliated.
The Crown would have us believe that the child had been dragged by his significant mohawk that he was proud of and forced by his monster of a father to endure this dreadful army haircut against his will and then sent off to school crying and hysterical to be made an example of. But the principal, who was actually a Crown witness of the school, told us that the haircut was actually quite nice and he looked very neat and tidy.
The problem was they only listened to one side of the story. They didn't go to the children's teachers or the doctors or family friends. There was nothing to show that they were abused children.
We're always taught that it's innocent until proven guilty. But in this case, I think the police and SIFs just immediately got on a bandwagon. It seemed that they were using a law that was to stop violent parents hurting their children, to stop good parents disciplining their children and teaching them honesty and integrity and to be a good citizen.
The SIF's lawyer told the judge in a judicial conference that if I was to divorce my husband and go back to America, that I could, all charges against me would be dropped, and that I could take our infant son with me to America. But why should I leave my husband?
After 4 weeks almost in court, and goodness knows how much money that was involved, we found them completely acquitted on all 15 charges after a discussion time that would have been 25 minutes.
I just started breaking down crying because finally the truth was coming out, and I finally felt free, and I didn't have to worry about my husband going to jail and having him in jail and our family torn apart.
I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed to be in New Zealand with this poor wee girl that's fallen in love and married her man and is starting a family, ends up in what should be the happiest time of her life being tortured. Who really was cruel?
Child, Youth and Family did not respect the full acquittal. Jack and Jenny do not yet have their family back together.
My oldest son, who's now 14, I haven't seen him in 2 years because I'm not allowed to. I've asked and they keep saying that I'm not allowed to. I've put applications in, have a supervised visit, they have a visit, a phone call with the policeman on the other end, and they still say that I'm not allowed to. You know, we still only see our daughter for 1 hour a week. It's 2 years.
I still don't have custody of the youngest. I'm only a day-to-day care provider, and recently SIFs has said that they want to have full custody of her son. And that scares me. Because we are his parents and we're supposed to be raising him, not SIFs.
I'm now struggling to accept that this this couple don't have their children back.
The government's response to these cases has been to commission the latter review into the actions of police and Child, Youth and Family. Despite not once speaking to the individuals concerned, the report found that government agencies had acted appropriately. The family's testimony was labelled unsafe.
The difficulty for Family First is what all they have is the account of the person who's talking to them, and people aren't always completely honest about the stuff that's gone on.
We're still fighting this because the summary that was presented in the latter report of our family is defamatory. It's wrong. The picture that it paints of our family is completely false. We're a loving, normal family. And if you read that summary, it sounds like we're an abusive, troubled family that just somehow got away with it. It says, among other things, that one of our daughters was sexually abused and that we were aware of it. And it's a complete and utter lie.
Until I read that report, I didn't even know that I'd punched her 3 times in the head. That had never been brought up in the court, and had never been brought up at the SIF's office.
Then the Nigel Latter report came out and it said that I'd been convicted and I actually assaulted my daughter, hit my daughter in that, and this wasn't true. I don't know where they got the information from.
So he'd never had any conviction against his name at all. He certainly never pled guilty to punching his daughter or even slapping her in any way whatsoever. So for Mr. Latter to arrive at that conclusion on the basis of that case would mean either that he's being dishonest, which I don't think he is, or that all he did as part of his review of that case was to merely read the original summary of facts or summary of allegations and essentially put aside any professional expertise in terms of assessing the case in terms of outcome and merely act from my perspective as a rubber stamp.
That makes me angry, and that when we come up and say that we disagree with the Latter report, that information is wrong, he goes, oh no, it must be right because they gave it to me. Well, it's wrong. And we have no recourse. We have tried to say you have received the wrong information and the Prime Minister will not listen.
And we were criminalised and we were charged, we were prosecuted, and our family has been ripped apart because of this law.
The only abuse that's happened to our kids has been this. It's been having to go through this process. John Key still needs to put this to rights. He said if this happens, he'll fix it. Well, he needs to fix it.